Now, we know that King Charles attended at COP28. He gave a speech, which is a little bit controversial in itself, depending who you speak to. But there was also a controversy around a tie that he wore at the conference. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the king wore a tie with the Greek flag on it, basically, and many people are alluding to that this was in tacit support of the Greek Prime Minister, which, if you remember, a few weeks ago, Rishi Sunak cancelled a meeting with him because there were disagreements over what he wanted to discuss. Apparently, he was going to use his platform with Rishi Sunak to discuss the return of the Elgin marbles. Now, I have to be transparent and say that I have no dog in this fight with regards to the Elgin marbles. I'm not Greek. I do think there is a strong case to returning the marbles, but again, I don't. It's not something that keeps me up, or most of the members of the British public, up at night. Most people don't even know what they are. But there's been kind of this ongoing PR dispute, particularly with the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, and Rishi Sunak over whether these marbles should be returned, whether it was right for Rishi Sunak to cancel the meeting over that. I happen to think that he was actually right, because even if you do want to discuss the Elgin marbles, it's not at a meeting where it has been designated to discuss other more pressing issues like immigration in Europe and the economy and all of that. Now, I don't actually think this move by King Charles to wear a tie with the Greek flag on it was in tacit kind of agreement with the Prime Minister of Greece, even though I suspect he probably leans more towards returning the Elgin marbles. We have to remember that King Charles's father, Prince Philip, was actually Greek. He was a Greek prince. So it's not surprising that he will have some affinity with his heritage in that way. I think actually King Charles is more clever than people give him credit for, and I don't think he will make those kinds of sort of PR blunders lightly. And so I do think that there is an element of bad faith. You know, I'm not necessarily fond of King Charles still going to COP28 and still trying to get involved in an increasingly political debate with regards to action to tackle climate change and all of that. But I do think in this particular instance, it was just happened to be something to celebrate his own heritage.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we touched on the Duke of Westminster's upcoming wedding and the fact that the Sussexes were excluded from attending. But a revelation this week that the Sussexes weren't necessarily excluded, rather they chose not to attend.
Yeah, so apparently, according to sources close to the Sussexes, and it's interesting that Sussexes are learning how to use sources close to them. That was one of Prince Harry's gripes in his book about, the palace briefing, close sources, but now they seem to be using it themselves, so they're understanding how to spin the PR game themselves. Anyway, apparently, according to sources close to the Sussexes, Harry called Hugh Grosvenor himself and apologised for having to excuse himself from the wedding, which would take place in June of next year. He said that he didn't want an awkward family meeting, and that the presence of him and his wife Meghan would actually take away the spotlight from his son's godfather's wedding and special day. And we obviously know that he would likely run into Kate and William, and that would be awkward considering all the flattering things he said about them both in his book Spare, amongst other things. So that's apparently what we're hearing. We're hearing that Harry excused himself from this wedding, which I suspect was probably a good idea, actually, because it would have drawn the attention away from them. But I think it's part of the bigger picture of, the actual increasing isolation of the Sussexes. They've effectively exiled themselves, whether they like to admit it or not. And I think that reality is really hitting hard.